So, Gary Tomlinson, who does Wins Race, has just announced that he's had his best ever record entry for 2022, 1,877 pigeons. Which is more pigeons than he had last year, but actually the best ever, without that, the best ever paid entries he's had. It equates to 1,844 paid entries with 33 free entries for charities and what have you. 1,844 paid entries, the best ever, significantly up from the 1,500 or so that he had last year. He admits himself it was looking grim in December because there were 500 entries down at that point for the year. So let's run the numbers first of all. He announced a couple of weeks ago that he was upping the guaranteed prize money to 110,000. Easy to do when you've got everything covered. And at the moment then, the entries, the paid entries he's got, not including the 33 free entries, means he's got a total income of £307,000, paying out £110,000, £197,000 gross income after payouts. Not bad money. Yes, expenses. Let's knock off corn, medication, transport, what have you. If you said 40 grand for that. He's looking for 150 grand profit before anybody takes their wages. Maybe this year is the final year that Who Dares Wins Alfreton Limited will actually make a profit, because it hasn't for the last 4 years. What's interesting on those numbers is that he said in the video that I've just seen that December was looking grim, and entries now have gone on this year in the last few months to pick up, and they've been flooded with entries in the last 3 or 4 weeks. But why would that be? Well, to get the most entries this year and December looking grim, there's an important factor there, isn't there? And the factor being is that the British Masters race isn't running this year. So how many of those 1,877 entries that he's got are actually entries that were meant to go to the British Masters? Now, the British Masters, before they cancelled their race on the 11th of February, had 500 entries in. I think it's safe to assume that Who Dares Wins this year probably got at least 500 entries, even if you went conservatively 400, but I would say at least 500 entries this year, because British Masters race isn't running. So there's a correlation there between the timings. December was grim, just at the time he was initiating court action against the British Masters. Court action which stressed out the Sullivan brothers that much, gave a lot of extra hassle to them trying to promote the race, proceeded to give court action to them, and in a way made them have to settle. And because of all of that stress and hassle, they decided they hadn't got the energy to focus on the race and cancelled the race. Quite a good business strategy, really. Put pressure on them legally, threaten the multi-million-pound business that Lee Sullivan's got, get a settlement, which despite his lies of the last few weeks, they did have. He did take them to court. It's proven that they took them to court. There's no injunctions in this world, high court injunctions, which he took out and spent thousands on, will get away from the fact that he took them to court and they settled. And now he's got his largest entry. Gross of £197,000. It'll make 150 grand plus whatever the auction does. It's not bad money. But how many of those entries are because the British Masters didn't run this year? No way of knowing. but a fair few hundred. It's everybody to make their own decisions. Is it the biggest entry because Mr. Tomlinson is so popular? If the British Masters had have been running, how many entries would he have had then? So we'll see. But I thought it was interesting that it got the most successful entries ever. And what's more interesting is that if you look at the legal documents on AskTommo.com, you will see that he claimed this leaflet that he took the British Masters to court with, that he still got me in court with. He said people were confused about the leaflet. People didn't know what was going on. And it was costing him business. Lo and behold, 4 months on, he's got the biggest entry he's ever had. Doesn't really ring true. It's not really consistent with what he said to the courts. So you can't argue that this leaflet that he made this big song and dance about, which he got some of his mates to email in saying they were confused, has affected his business in any single way, shape or form. Quite the opposite. And unfortunately, because of all the stress and hassle caused, British Masters not going on this year. If the British Masters had have carried on this year, I wonder what his entries would have been. Incidentally, you may have seen that the harassment case, of which there are confidential documents that I can't share, some of it's laughable. The harassment case was dropped after 2 weeks of without prejudice conversations with his solicitors. One of the offers from him via his solicitors verbally was, I'll drop both cases against you. You assign all of the IP copyright to me and take down the website AskTommo, and that's that. No deal. I went back and said, if there's no way that he's not paying me at least the £5,000 that he owes me, and I proportioned it £4,000 for the work I did for him 2 years ago now, 80% of my original amount it should have been, because 80% of the work was done, and £1,000 nominal amount to the DVDs that I've never been paid for. And I was insistent on that because it's a matter of principle. It's not necessarily about the money, it's a matter of the principle of it. 3 offers later, one of which made no sense, it was even more ridiculous than the first offer, I had a final call on Monday, and the offer went back to either we drop both cases. Oh no, it wasn't that. It was, we'll drop the harassment case, but we'll carry on with the copyright case. You mean the case that's going to cost him all of this money to take to court, you want to drop, but the copyright case that he's already spent money on, he'll keep going with. Because he refuses to pay me any money, but he wants the copyright assigned to him, and he wants the website taken down. I said no deal. I think it was a very, very fair deal, but we all know what Gary's like. He's got the ego the size of a house, and he would never want to seem to be backing down. So, subsequently on Monday, I had another call with another BS offer from his solicitors. And I said, you know what, we'll go to court on both. The harassment and the copyright. Copyright case is due to be heard on the 28th of June. The harassment case was due to be heard today. I said, we'll go to court on both. 2 hours later, I get an email to say he's dropping the harassment case. So, hundreds of papers personally served to me. 2 times I've embarrassed to go to the High Court to serve an injunction for me to not post 4 documents that he didn't want posting to show exactly what he did with the British Masters and exactly what he said about these cases. And now he's dropping the case. Why is he dropping the case? Because he would have realised, one, I would have countersued and had a lot more to come back to him, including, like I told his solicitors, I've got a video of him directly threatening and pointing at my son, calling him a con man, and a bunch of other stuff. At the time he was only 16. I did tell them that would be back in the counterclaim. And I'm sure his solicitors would have said it's going to cost you tens of thousands to put this through. And when he realised he wasn't going to be by the solicitors again, he's backed out of the harassment case. So all of that cost him whatever it's cost him. So yeah, he stands to make 150 grand this year. Yes, he's got some legal costs because he refuses to do the right thing and pay me out what he owes me for all of that work I did. And not forget, work that I've done that I think some of it has continued to help him earn every single year. Let's look at the last 3 years. 2020, 1,500 entries. About 100 grand gross profit before tax. Last year, 1,800 entries. He says 300 of them were free. So 1,500, another 100 grand plus whatever auction bits. 200 grand. This year, 150 grand gross. I think it'll be about 150 grand before wages, before tax. So over 3 years, 350 grand, the best 3 years he's ever had. I'm not saying, like I've said before, that the work I did for him in 2019, 2020 is all of that. It didn't, but it certainly helped. And it's certainly his social media exposure and his live videos. He learned everything he knows from me. Of course, it helped that he guaranteed the prize money in 2020. That was one of his excuses for why the entries went up. But let me tell you now, I was the one that told him to guarantee the prize money. And that's backed up by somebody called Maurice O'Donnell, who was in Portugal at the same time as I was saying to Gary that he should guarantee the prize money. Maurice will quantify that and he will confirm that, because Maurice was the one that actually said, if you want me to back the shortfall, in case there was a shortfall, Maurice O'Donnell would do it. So even the idea of guaranteeing the prize money was mine. But Gary Tomlinson can't credit me with any of that. 350 grand before tax profits over 3 years. Not bad money for the most open, honest and transparent man there is in the pigeon sport. He's dropped the harassment case. He's got the most entries, made the most money he's ever made this year. Good luck to him. Yet, he's chosen to take the British Masters to court, give them a lot of hassle and stress. He's taking me to court. I even said to his solicitor on Monday, what's he aiming to do now? He's finished with the British Masters. He's settled out of court with them. What's his goal? His goal is to get the IP and the copyright of all of the material and all the work I ever did for him without paying me for it. That's the goal. We'll see. Court 28th of June. And let's see how the season goes for him. Let's not forget, this is a man, despite all of the bad losses people had last year, statistically, numbers do not lie. This is a man that had the most losses, percentage-wise, of any one-off race in the UK outside of the Pride of the Potterers, who had no birds back on the day. The second or third worst losses. Not good numbers. Let's hope he gets numbers back for all of his customers this year, and let's hope he gets good returns. 350 grand in 3 years. This has been going on for 2 years. I noticed in his video he said his wife's not been well over the last 2 years. That's why nobody's seen her. That's not good. I don't like that. But as these court documents show, it's not all about what I'm doing. It's about what he's done and his inability or refusal to settle anything with me. Like I said to his solicitor on Monday, I don't even want to be looking what the guy's doing anymore. I don't want to have to care, and I'm sure he doesn't have to care about me. But the man flatly refuses to do any form of settlement and figure it out so we can both move on. And that's fine. As a point of principle, I will continue to demonstrate the other side of the most transparent, open and honest man and family there is in the UK pigeon sport today. He's earned good money again this year. The biggest ever entrance he's ever had. Like I said, how many of those entries are because the British Masters is not going ahead this year? And despite what he says, the British Masters is not going ahead this year directly because of his actions. And proven by the fact that he took a High Court injunction out on me to stop me publishing the whys and wherefores of his actions against the British Masters. Again, it's for everybody to make their own decision and their own mind on. Let's see how things go. You never know. His solicitors might advise him to finish this with me and move on. I doubt it because of the man he is. And that's fine. We'll go to court 28th of June and we'll see what the judge says. I can prove he never paid me for any of the work. He can say, I gave him 30 birds. That wasn't the deal. The deal was, let's come back to basics. The deal was 30 entries in his race, which he refused to give me. Therefore, he prevented me from getting any money out of all of the hundreds of hours of work I did. I'm a man of principle. As his solicitor says, he is as well. But I think we've both got different moral principle points and sets. We'll see. Let's see. The biggest ever entry for Who Dares Wins and Gary Tomlinson and his family this year. 307,000 income, 110,000 guaranteed, which is 35% of the total money being paid out. Again, not the best payout, actually. Most one-off races pay between 45 and 50%. He's paying 35%. But again, each to their own. We will see. I don't intend to do many updates unless anything happens of any consequence on this site. Hundreds of people see this site every single month. And like I also said to the solicitor, my goal is to let people know what this man is really like behind the mask of Mr. Nice, open and honest and transparent. Because there's another side to him and the family. But I'm sure he'll be rubbing his hands now, sitting on over £300,000. Let's hope Who Dares Wins Alfredton Limited does actually declare a profit this year, because that's the company that's taking me to court for this IP claim. So when I win my counterclaim showing that I was never paid, hopefully Who Dares Wins Alfredton will actually have some money to be able to pay me out on my counter defence when I win. Thanks for watching. Catch you soon.